Welcome to the Sales Enablement Innovation Podcast, brought to you by the Sales Enablement Collective. Each episode, we sit down with sales enablement and revenue leaders from around the world and invite them to share their expertise and experience with the community. On this episode, we spoke to Scott Maryan about creating a centre of excellence for enablement and the cross-functional benefits that can come with it. I hope you enjoy our conversation. On the show today is Scott Maryan. Thanks, Scott, for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
And you, Daniel. Glad to be here.
So could you introduce yourself for our listeners and sort of give a background into your enablement and sort of your experience and how you've gotten to this point in your career?
Okay. My name is Scott Maryan. I'm a director of adoption at Puzzel. I started off many years ago as a teacher. And I always say that I sold my soul and went into the private sector. There were some parts in my life that led me to where I am. And I think, I found that really one of the things that was inspiring me when I was teaching was that how people were learning, how children were learning rather than what they were learning. They were using the internet. They were using, YouTube forums to learn. And it really inspired me. And I sort of realised that the future within L&D was included a digital world. And from there, I went into the private sector. I've worked in enablement in many different areas, training and worked for different companies, UCaaS companies, SaaS companies, artificial intelligence, and pretty much got where I am today, really, in a Puzzel. I think the key thing that I always take with me is that I always take those standards of being a teacher and those and how to teach, and then those things I learned as a teacher, I take with me into my role now.
That's really interesting. It feels like a sort of natural fit to go from teaching into enablement as well. That's really cool. So our sort of main topic for today is the idea of a centre of excellence and sort of the benefits that you can sort of find with that. But before we sort of dive into that, could you explain how you define a centre of excellence, the concept of one, and sort of how you've sort of put it to use in your experience?
Yeah. So what we're made up of three senior leaders who cover three areas really: sales enablement, partner enablement, and client enablement. And although we have different roles, we have our own roles within the organisation. This is something about coming together and doing something additional as a collective. We're a sort of centralised team whose focus is to drive those best practices, continuous improvement and empowerment for whether it's internally, whether it's for our partners, for our clients. And really that fostering of that culture of learning, really. And for me personally, it's to enhance the driving of value for our clients. So my role is primarily focused on client enablement and client adoption and client training. And it's a good opportunity to come together, a group of people, and just set some standards and share ideas and best practices.
That makes a lot of sense. And how you found the sort of differences between sort of client enablement and sales enablement, and like how do you sort of manage to blend those all together?
Yeah, it's a good question. One thing I've learned, is that no idea is a bad idea. And we're coming together. We can bounce ideas off each other and experience as well. So everyone comes to the group with different experience and different ways of doing things, and we was able to sort of share those ideas and come up with suggestions. There's no egos in the room. There's no line managers to report to. It's just a collective. You see how powerful the sales collective is. As going out to different people, in enablement and how we can share ideas. It's a similar sort of thing, but a much smaller thing that covers sort of clients, the partners, and internal.
That makes a lot of sense, and I like that sort of founding principle as well. It's a really interesting sort of bring those sort of similar but adjacent roles sort of in together. So the thing I sort of want to bounce into next is just thinking about adopting that structure and sort of moving into it. And maybe there are people who are listening who have sort of disparate teams or sort of haven't sort of got this sort of collaboration and are interested in sort of adopting a similar structure. What sort of challenges should they be prepared for? Did you ever sort of face any hurdles coming into it, or what are the sort of the key things to know when it comes to having a sort of center, the idea of a center of excellence in your organization?
Well, I think first of all, let's look at the benefits. And when we look at the benefits, this collaboration of expertise, knowledge, and experience, we've built a strong strategic plan for the future based on what we call a charter, really. And we've laid down a charter for our plans for the future, and it encompasses, all the three different areas. We've got a stronger enablement identity within the organisation, and our mission really is to expand that out to the wider community, to our clients. I think it's we all know that enablement is a very lonely area at times, and it can be very lonely. In the whole idea of sharing ideas, bouncing ideas, there's some of the benefits we see a lot. We've seen a lot of quick wins since we've joined this sort of collective. Things like lunch and learns. We've dedicated ourselves to do a lunch and learn every single week for a whole year. I mean, that's a big commitment in some way, because we've still got our main jobs. We're aligning KPIs. We're doing meetings with internal departments, and more than anything, we get a stronger friendship and respect for each other. So it's these people from work, but suddenly we've got this closer friendship, and they're some of the really strong benefits I've seen of this centre of excellence. Some of the challenges, though, and there are some, you're going to always find them, and aligning sales, marketing, product, customer success functions to work collaboratively is really a challenge at times. You've got to break down. You're always going to get silos that happen, and also you'll find as well that different cultures, We're a European company. We've got offices in the UK, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Holland. So everyone thinks to do things differently. So it's all about aligning and taking different things into consideration. Other challenges, really, creating new processes. No one likes change. That's always a struggle, and ensuring consistency and efficiency in those best practices. You'll find that sometimes you'll introduce something new, and everyone's up for it and enthusiastic, and then slowly they fade away back to their old practices of what they used to do, and it's hard to keep that, ensuring that that's consistent and continual. How we've done it is really around focusing on change management as an organisation. As an organisation, we really focused on change management, which helped using a lot of models, internal marketing as well. And one thing we're very pleased about is that we've created our own little logo. We've got good communication channels. We want to increase our marketing internally. We don't want to be seen as just a group of people that meet every month or every couple of weeks or every week. We want to have a strong presence within the organisation. So we really focus on our internal marketing and to make sure that we've got a strong brand. I sometimes see ourselves as a business inside a bigger business, really. We're not a new department. And there's the one thing I'd like to say is that we've got no new line managers. We don't have line managers. We're just a collective, and I think, as I said, leaving their egos behind, or their we try and really focus on just being that collective.
That's really interesting, and I really like that sort of the concept as a whole as well. One of the things I want to loop back to that you mentioned is the having a sort of almost a charter, and how you sort of use that. It's something that comes up in the community quite a lot in terms of the use of a charter and how useful it is. Is it for you a charter for the entire sort of center of excellence, or is it specifically for each sort of you've got like a sales enablement charter, a partner enablement charter? How does that actually look in your organization then?
Yeah, each of us in our own departments have our own strategic plan for the next year or 2 years. What we wanted to do is have a joint charter. Now, when I call it a charter instead of a strategic plan, is because it's a working document. It can change at any time, and the business changes. So it lists our mission, our vision, our goals, our key responsibilities, and everything is then underpinned by our own company values. So it gives us direction as individuals, the three of us, but more so that we can then be transparent with the leaders within the organisation. We can be transparent with the different departments and our own teams as well. And we can align our KPIs, our own individual KPIs, or our departmental KPIs against this charter. So we're getting a bit of synergy across all three of the departments, and that's sort of the main idea behind it, really.
I like that a lot. And in terms of like the internal response, like have you sort of seen positive feedback? You mentioned the internal marketing, which is really cool. I'd love to dive into a little bit in a moment as well. But like in terms of the leadership teams, and leadership buy-in is like a struggle for everyone in enablement. In that sort of, have you found that sort of bringing together sales enablement, partner enablement, client, like does that give you a stronger presence when it comes to sort of leadership buy-in as well?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. You're not talking to one individual, you're suddenly talking to three individuals. And, and we're a strong alliance. I think that to anyone out there who's looking to do this sort of thing, this centre of excellence, it's a good thing in that it would give you more power. It would give you more kudos, I think is a better word.
That makes a lot of sense. And coming back to that internal marketing, what are some where did that sort of idea come from in terms of having an internal brand and this sort of thing? Like how did that sort of come about? Because it's really interesting. I can really see the power in it, and I'd love to know sort of where that sort of came from initially.
Yeah. So in my department, I have an internal brand in that department as well. We have a strapline. We're called the Puzzel Academy. And we have a strapline that says more than learning. And the whole idea being that we offer more than just learning. We offer, our training is very hands-on. It's about building relationships. It's about, having fun, making it enjoyable, social interaction. And so what we try to give as add value to our clients is around, more than learning. And I think the extension of that, is to have a logo, give it an identity, to make sure that the Centre of Excellence has this identity. We have an unofficial motto or mantra that we use in my own department that says no passion, no point. If you don't have a passion in delivering training, there's no point being there. You understand. And I think that, that was a bit of a success as well. And I think that we've extended that onto the Centre of Excellence. Every single one of us felt that we needed some sort of identity to give it that stronger presence. We want to take this further. We don't want to just keep it in-house, the Centre of Excellence. We want to take it out to our clients, our partners. And I think that identity gives it that kudos.
I really like that. And then in terms of like the actual sort of, you mentioned like sort of idea sharing and the sort of the brainstorm that can come around. Obviously the team between you is involved in sort of sales enablement, partner enablement, client enablement. How much do you sort of actually share resources across the channels? How much is like bespoke and tailored? Do you find that you can sort of adapt things that have been used internally for external use with clients? How much do you actually get out of the content sharing itself beyond just like the ideation?
Yeah, there's two things here. Number one, is the content sharing, but first and foremost is that whole idea of being efficient, not reinventing the wheel. You'll be surprised how I say, oh, what about this? And someone says, oh, I've got something that might help, and we can adapt it a little bit, or we can change it a little bit. And sometimes it might be that we look at a piece of content and we look at the aims and objectives and we say, that's not strong enough, or that needs to change, or I've got a really good objective that would be underpin the whole of what we're trying to build here. And I think one of the things is sharing of resources as well when it comes to the actual delivery of whether it's product training internally for the sales team on a new product. It's usually my team that will support that delivery. So it's a sharing of resources, but also that sharing of content. And you'd be surprised how much time is saved just by what people have already got. But also somebody will turn around and say, look, I know you're busy at the moment. I'll do this for you, or let me leave this with me. I'll do some of that creating of that content, because it might be helpful for them further on. It might be something silly like editing a video, or building a micro e-learning module or something. So it's about working as a team. One of our values at Puzzel is working together, and so yeah.
I really like that, especially the fact that enablement can really so often be like you mentioned, a lonely role, to be able to sort of bring it in and find that collaboration.
Yeah, it's extremely. I mean, for people who are listening, they're probably sitting there thinking, yeah, it can be quite lonely, and to be taken seriously as well. I will say this, but what I call the last bullet point syndrome, and my colleagues would have heard me say this many times. When we talk about enablement and when we talk about training or whatever, it's always the last bullet point. So they talk about we offer this, we offer that, whether it's sales or people, just people in general. They will talk about all the different things, but the last bullet point is always training or always enablement, and that's always a struggle for me. It's my biggest challenge in all my roles that I've been in. It's to stop thinking that training needs to be that last bullet point on the agenda. I've been in meetings where, with clients, and, I've got 5 minutes at the end to talk about training. The meeting overruns, and suddenly I've got 2 minutes to talk about training. Let's stop talking about enablement and onboarding and training being that last bullet point. Let's make it number 2, number 3. If we poor onboarding or poor enablement is the number one reason why people why customers churn. And managing expectations early on, in the sales process, by bringing in. I mean, I do a lot of meetings with clients really, really early on to really empower, them with their knowledge of what we do in regards to training and what they can expect to see come from the training. So yeah, so message out there, challenge the last bullet point syndrome.
That makes a lot of sense, and I really love that that's episode title sorted. I love it. It's a really powerful one. In terms of, I want to sort of bring back, you mentioned that you have the background in teaching, and how does that help your mentality in terms of that you've seen the importance of that in sort of outside the private sector as well? Does that sort of add to the passion that you've sort of seen the power of sort of teaching in that sense and sort of bringing it to the private sector?
I think more than anything, it's about best practices regarding. I always say that you need 2 skills to deliver training or training of any kind. You need to have that subject matter expert, knowledge of the product or knowledge of what you're delivering in regards to training, but also you have the knowledge to be a trainer. And it's, and that's where a lot of people lack that knowledge of being able to deliver training. So everyone in my team specifically is either a qualified trainer or working towards a training qualification, because you do need those two skill sets. And it's really hard. And it's, if you've delivered, training of any kind, people say, yeah, I've done training. But you try doing it 5 days a week, 4 days a week. It's tiring, exhausting. You might have problems at home or problems away from work or stress from work, but you've got to go into that room with energy and with a smile on your face, no matter what. And that can be exhausting in itself. So, and dealing with difficult learners, whatever they might be, is a challenge. So being a teacher sort of gave me that grounding many years ago of what to expect. And also things like best practices around, make sure that you're writing your session plans or your lesson plans. If you're, aims and objectives. every one of my training courses, that I think we've got something like 29 courses, I think, and each one has a lesson plan. Each one has, aims and objectives, because it's just good practice, and it's the sort of things that I've taken with me from teaching, and brought with me into that private sector. And it also works well when you've got a client that turns around and says, "Oh, do you have got a catalogue of your what you deliver in training," or whether a partner contacts us and says, "We've got some sort of details." We can give them the catalogue, but if they want to go into a bit more in depth, you can then say, "Well, look, I've got a lesson plan here, or I've got here's the resources that I have. Here's some handouts, some worksheets, or whatever it might be." And that just adds extra value to that partner or extra value to that client, especially if they're doing train the trainer. They might be the best trainers in the world, and you might teach them about the product, but they'll always be value. They'll always see value in having that lesson plan or those handouts, because they don't have to reinvent the wheel then. They don't have to rewrite all of that to help deliver their train the trainer. So, yeah, they're the sort of best practices I've taken with me.
That's really insightful, and especially about that sort of the adding value to existing clients or existing partners as well, with things that then you already have. There's sort of almost for free in terms of being able to provide those extra benefits. I'm thinking back to sort of, again, the listener who's maybe considering adopting a centre of excellence, and what did the time frame look like from sort of you having this idea to it sort of being in motion, and like you said, meeting weekly or monthly or whatever it might be? I imagine it didn't sort of appear overnight. What were sort of steps you had to take, and how long did it take to sort of actually get the wheels moving on it?
Look, Daniel, I'm going to be honest and open here. When I first heard about it, I was like, whoa, no, this is I'm quite happy doing what I do. I pushed back. It wasn't my idea. It was something that had been brought to us, and I pushed back on it. I'm going to be honest and open and say, well, I've got a full-time job as it is. I don't need extra work to, and managing more people and more projects and whatever. And I really pushed back on it. And then I had a chat with a couple of people, and I built into this idea, and I did a lot of self-reflection as well. And then no sooner as, the people I work with, I'm quite good friends with anyway. And, the two other members of the Centre of Excellence are good friends of mine. And once we sat down and started talking as a collective, I really start seeing the benefits. And the benefits do come from that efficiency, that whole idea of, we're saving time, we're working together, sharing resources and so forth. So I suddenly saw the real benefits, and it doesn't take long. You've got to work out your charter or work out your strategic plan, what you want to achieve, what your aims and objectives are going to be, what your goals are going to be. You don't need budget really to begin with. You don't need anything budget. Once you start showing what you can achieve in this Centre of Excellence, what you can achieve collectively, then once you've got an idea of your logo and your internal marketing plan as well, once you see the output, then people might start thinking about giving you money and giving you budget. So I don't think you need money and budget. It's about coming together, dropping those egos, dropping the silos, and just focusing on a positive.
I really like that. That's again, budget is such a big stickler in enablement so often. So the fact that you can sort of get cracking on whatever.
It goes to what I was saying before about the last bullet point in training. When it comes to money, the first thing that cuts back on is training or enablement. We're going to have to cut the budget for training or cut the budget for enablement, and that just doesn't go for our organisations. It also goes for our clients as well. And our partners. So, let's see what you can do on a tiny, minute budget, and there's plenty of resources out there on the internet. There's plenty of, things out there you can do that will support your what you're trying to achieve. But define what that charter looks like. Define what your vision and your mission statement is, and set those goals and responsibilities. it bonds the wider
100%.
team, and and it gives that, gives everyone a direction, but also it gives that transparency to the rest of the organisation.
100%. I really like that. And just before we wrap up, I wanted to sort of end on like, do you have a like sort of one biggest piece of advice for someone who's looking to build that sort of center of excellence? If they can only take one thing away from this, they've listened in, they've bought in, and they can only take one sort of golden piece of advice away from it, what would that be? Sort of, if you had, your elevator pitch for the idea of a center of excellence, because there's been so much good stuff in this episode so far. What's the highlight for you that you really want to sort of push across?
I could say build a charter. I could say, recruit trainers and not subject matter experts. I could say challenge the last bullet points in both. I think my bit of advice I would say is look for a mentor. Look for someone who will be able to guide you. Not be a line manager, but guide you, in those early stages. If you've got ideas and you want to put them together, and you've got this idea of a, center of excellence or whatever, reach out to someone. That person doesn't have to be someone higher up in the organisation. Sometimes it could be just a peer or a member of your team. But go to them for advice. Go to them for support, because I think there's great value in mentors, and great value in just buddies, just sharing ideas, and sometimes a little bit of advice from one person can make a huge amount of difference later on or very early stages. And, and I value that. I value that whole idea of that mentor and buddy idea.
That's really, really valuable and really powerful as well, I think, on a note to end on. And on that, Scott, thank you for coming onto the show and sharing this. I really learned a lot. I found it really interesting. I'm 100% sure our listeners will have as well. So thank you for taking the time this morning to run through this. Yeah, really valuable, really insightful, and I can't wait to get it out there.
Yeah, cheers, Daniel. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the Sales Enablement Innovation Podcast. Be sure to follow us on your podcast platform of choice so you don't miss a thing. And if you're hungry for more sales enablement content, visit our website, salesenablementcollective.com, for articles, events, and an easy way to join our Slack community, home to thousands of your sales enablement peers.